torrent of rapids and waterfalls. But this was only the beginning. A month later, another giant quake, estimated at magnitude 8, tears the frontier town of New Madrid, Missouri, to pieces. 2 weeks after that, a third magnitude 8 quake strikes. Over the next 2 months, almost 2,000 smaller tremors strike. The effects are felt throughout the entire eastern half of the United States.
In New Madrid, in the middle of the plate, to have a large earthquake, a huge earthquake, is astounding. And then to follow it up with 2 other events that were as large or larger, just incredible.
This incredible series of earthquakes seems to have come from nowhere. This is the flat, stable center of the North American plate. It's supposed to be safe from large earthquakes. Reelfoot Lake, 24 kilometers from New Madrid, is famous for its fishing. But seismologist Roy Van Arsdale hasn't come for the largemouth bass. For him, Reelfoot holds the key to unlocking the mystery of the New Madrid quakes. 200 years ago, this lake didn't exist.
Well, this serene swamp and lake area was rocked severely during the winter of 1811-1812 in a series of 3 giant earthquakes. It was the third one in March that is responsible for the formation of this lake.
Reelfoot Lake's peaceful appearance is deceptive. Beneath its calm waters, scientists have made an earth-shattering discovery.
There's microseismic activity, meaning little earthquakes are occurring all the time out here. So there are seismometers planted in the landscape around us, measuring, recording these earthquakes.
Deep under Reelfoot Lake and New Madrid is a mysterious fault system that spawned the huge earthquakes of 1811-1812. It continues to generate small earthquakes today. But this discovery raises even more questions. If the New Madrid fault is not a plate boundary, then what is it? The answer to that lies far away in Ethiopia. This is part of Asia and Africa's Great Rift Valley, a fault system that stretches 4,800 kilometers from northern Syria to Mozambique. The earth here is splitting apart and bleeding molten rock. A tectonic plate is being torn in half and pushed apart. A process called rifting. 500 million years ago, this almost happened in the peaceful plains of the Midwest. A surge of magma spewed up from the molten interior of the Earth, eating through the crust beneath the ancient Midwest. But before the plate was completely split, the magma retreated, leaving behind vast cracks in the Earth's crust. As pressure builds up on this fault system, it's released as massive earthquakes. A similar failed rift has been found near the city of Bhuj in India. The buried rifts under Bhuj and New Madrid solved part of the mystery. But there are still many things scientists don't understand about intraplate earthquakes. They have no idea what triggers these rogue disasters or where they will strike next.
We really don't have a good working model for what drives these intraplate earthquakes. This is still quite the mystery in seismology, geology that a number of us are working on, and we just don't have an answer to that right now.
In 1811 and 1812, the New Madrid earthquakes struck sparsely populated areas. Today, millions of people living in cities like St. Louis and Memphis are within striking distance of the New Madrid fault system. If it wakes again, the human and economic toll will be devastating.
It would be foolish to think that it couldn't happen again, that it's over. There's no scientific evidence that whatever is giving rise to these earthquakes has gone away.
The New Madrid quakes were the largest intraplate earthquakes in history, but they pale in comparison to a massive tectonic rupture that ripped through Chile, producing the largest earthquake on record. And even that catastrophe is not the worst-case scenario. Experts believe a giant earthquake lies in wait, one whose shockwaves will ravage a nation and shake the entire planet. There is one earthquake that towers over all others, one so massive it changed the shape of a nation and killed people half a world away. This is a staggering event that rates as the largest on record. In the small Chilean town of Maullín, life is quiet and simple. Its 1,500 residents depend on the sea and the soil to survive. But in 1960, both elements conspired to decimate this peaceful place. Juana Lopez was 8 months pregnant when her world was torn to pieces.
I was at my sister's house and felt a movement. Immediately I realized it was an earthquake.
Nelly Gallardo was also caught by the earthquake's violence.
We couldn't stand up. We had to sit down and hold to our fins. But the fins were moving like this. Then the earth started to open.
But the shaking in Maullín is just the beginning. A massive catastrophe is spreading across Chile, killing thousands and shaking the entire nation to its core. 161 kilometers off the Chilean coast, the small, dense Nazca Plate slams into the much larger and lighter South American Plate, creating a subduction zone. This is far more dangerous than the one that affected Mexico in 1985, because here it runs the entire length of the continent. On May 22, 1960, the Nazca subduction zone spawns the largest earthquake ever measured by scientists, a massive magnitude 9.5. The amount of energy unleashed is equal to 32 billion tons of TNT, or more than 2 million Hiroshima bombs. The intense seismic waves tear apart cities caught in their path. Buildings topple, the ground turns to liquid, landslides sweep down mountain slopes, and cliff fronts collapse into the ocean. The city of Valdivia, close to the epicenter of the quake, is besieged. Almost half the city is reduced to rubble. But this is just the beginning. The fault rupture sets in motion a chain of events that ruins lives for generations and permanently scars the landscape. Today, Valdivia is once again a thriving city, a strategically important point at the meeting of three rivers. But take a closer look, and there are secrets beneath the water. Mysterious streets that plunge into nowhere, drowned foundations and ghost-like ruins along the river's banks. The 1960 earthquake did far more than shake things up. It forever changed the shape of the land itself. This ruined landscape is the victim of a side effect of the massive Chilean earthquake called subsidence. Valdivia's fate was sealed hundreds of years before the quake. For centuries, pressure built up along the boundary of the two great tectonic plates off Chile's coast. The South American plate began to slowly bulge upwards under the strain. When the fault ruptured in 1960, the strain was released on the South American plate. It snapped back to its natural shape, lowering a vast swath of land 2.5 meters. For the people of Valdivia, this is a disaster that will last for generations.
Most of this area before the 1960 earthquake used to be pastures, high-quality pastures. The ground dropped 2 meters down, and now the tides cover every day this land. So there was a huge damage on the economy of these people here because they lost the soil, the better soil of the area.
Over 200,000 square kilometers of Chile's coast subsided after the earthquake. But incredibly, even this was not the most deadly part of the day.
They said we need to be prepared because the sea is coming in, the tsunami is coming, and we have to climb up the hill.
Just 15 minutes after the massive quake, a series of giant earthquake-generated tsunami waves slam into the coast. Some are 18 meters high. From her vantage point on the hill above Maujin, Juana watches as half the town is washed away.
The waves were coming in, trying to imprison us. We heard another wave coming, starting to move the houses that were on the shore, making them hit one another. It was a terrific noise, a noise that scared us.
But Nelly Gallardo had no time to get to safety. She was caught by the full fury of the waves.
As the wave was advancing, trees and other things were disappearing in its path. I climbed up into some trees, but when the second wave came, the trees were not strong enough to hold us. So I jumped onto a log and tried to hold on and keep my face out of water. Then a boy climbed onto the log too.
122 people from Maujin drowned that night, but somehow Nelly survived. The giant waves wreaked havoc far beyond Chile. They radiated out from the fault rupture, striking other unsuspecting Pacific locations. 15 hours after the earthquake struck, the tsunami reached Hawaii. The port city of Hilo was devastated and 61 lives lost. 7 hours later, the tsunami hit Japan, killing 122 people. The Philippines and the west coast of the United States also felt the waves of destruction that day. When it was all over, the great Chilean earthquake killed 2,000 and left 2 million homeless. It remains the largest earthquake on record. But records were made to be broken. Scientists believe another giant earthquake lies in Chile's future, one that could be much, much worse. The evidence pointing towards a mega disaster lies on a remote section of coastline in southern Chile. This was once a big forest until the 1960 earthquake and tsunami devastated the area and left only twisted stumps. To the trained eyes of geologist Marco Cisternas, this deserted beach holds vital clues to Chile's seismic future.
The 1960 event wasn't a unique event. Although it was a giant, it wasn't unique. In this outcrop, you can see there is a soil, a buried soil here. This is 1960 soil, covered by a tsunami sand layer here. And below that, you can find another soil corresponding to the 1575 earthquake.
Along this coast, there is evidence of another dozen earthquakes that ravaged the area in the last 2,000 years.
So it is certain that in the future, another earthquake, giant earthquake, is going to strike central Chile.
When it strikes, it will be an ultimate disaster, an event that will cripple a country and send shockwaves around the entire planet.